In this video, we're going to introduce semantic link. Semantic link is a functionality in notebooks in Fabric that allows you to interact with, connect to, and use semantic models. It makes it possible for you to do all kinds of crazy and interesting things, from reading those models, their metadata, but also extracting data and using it, even writing to models. So adding measures, making changes, these kind of things. Semantic link is the core functionality that allows us to interface with semantic models from a notebook in Fabric. It's something that's exclusive to Fabric, so even if you're using notebooks and other tools like Google Colab, you cannot use semantic link. You can only use it in notebooks in Fabric. So let's take a look at some examples. In order to use semantic link, you can import the library, for example, SciPy Fabric as Fabric, and we can do things like reading data from a table. So we already showed this example already, where we can, for example, load some data from a products table in a model in the same workspace, and then we're sampling 3 random rows to confirm that we have the right data. We can then use that information to, for example, do an analysis by creating visuals. But we can also, if we proceed, explore other workspaces. So we're looking at this model in a different workspace, and we're looking at 3 of the tables. So we can explore the model and see what its contents are. For example, we might be interested in the customers table, and we can then proceed to list the columns in that customers table from the model in that workspace. And we might be interested then in something like, the key accounts and the number of accounts that are in those key accounts. So we can extract that data, create our visualization, and so on, just like we did before. Now we have our customers information. We're just sampling 3 random rows. And then we can create a visualization of the number of accounts per key account. So you can use semantic link to interface with a model in order to analyze it, but you can do more than that. You can, for example, use it to help you develop a model. For example, you can get information, metadata about relationships. You can visualize these relationship differences, and you can even, if we scroll down a little bit farther, look at DAX queries, for example, to be able to identify any referential integrity violations. So in this case, these are all rows causing referential integrity violations from the orders request goods receipt date. So basically, these are dates that are present in this column, but they're missing from our date table. So we can take that information and we can use it and provide it, for example, to the person responsible for that data source so we can fix the data quality issue or investigate further ourselves. But this is just a very simple example. What else can we do? Well, we can, for example, if we scroll down a little bit farther, so we can here, what we're actually doing is we're trying to evaluate a measure inside of a model. So we're trying to group it by shipping brands. And we can, if that measure doesn't exist, so it doesn't find the measure, so we can actually create that measure in the model and then evaluate it and observe the result. So we can write changes to the semantic model as well. So there's all kinds of things that become possible because of semantic link. We'll go through a number of these different things and explain how you can do these yourselves. But the best thing you can do is to kind of just explore this functionality and think about the kinds of use cases that you can benefit from. I think the important thing to mention is that it's extremely useful for connecting to and using a semantic model. But when it comes to managing and developing a semantic model, you'll have to remember that this is probably not the main way that you're going to be developing a model. It's very likely that you can use this, for example, to save reusable patterns, things like the date table, or things like specific DAX patterns, and then you can write them to the model, or you can make changes in bulk, that kind of thing. But it's not going to be the primary method by which you're going to be manipulating and managing a semantic model as such. So in the next module, we'll dive in a little bit deeper in some of these use cases. Specifically, we're going to focus on this analysis use case.